Today we're out here in Watts Valley just checking on what PG&E is doing with their vegetation management program. We're looking at the Helms-Gregg line right now. It's a 230 kilovolt line, high voltage transmission line. That's a blue oak there. Very slow growing species. You can see it's fairly near the lines, not that near. Certainly not near enough to cause any damage. It's probably 15 feet away, at least. And yet, let's walk up a little. You notice that there's some blue spray paint on the bark of the tree there. A neighbor called me the other day and said that dozens of his trees were marked in the same way as this on his property less than a mile from here. So we checked to see why these marks have been placed on the trees, and local PG&E people didn't know anything about it. But we finally got in touch with the head of the vegetation management department of PG&E, and she told us that in fact these trees are all being removed. Now here's another tree that's being removed. You can see maybe down there on the bark. That same blue spot. Now it's not likely that this tree or the other tree that we looked at is going to grow much more. I've been around here all my life. I've been watching these trees. These are mature blue oaks, and in this area, this particular location on our ranch here, they do not grow very big because they just don't have the nutrients to grow very big. So at this stage, they reach a stage where they just maintain, and they lose as much as they grow, and that's the case. This tree is also at least 30 to 35 feet away from the wires, as it is right now. It will never grow and encroach on the lines. And, you know, that's the word that the lady from PG&E, the head of the vegetation management department at PG&E, used. She said that the trees are encroaching on the line. Well, you know, that tree's been here for a couple hundred years. I think it's the line and PG&E that are encroaching on the. Here's another tree that's been marked. You can see the blue paint. Another larger tree. These trees may actually cause a problem, but they could be trimmed instead of removed. There's another one in the same area. Dozens of trees around here. Here's another tree. It's another mature blue oak that's not going to grow anymore. And yet, you can see the blue paint on the bark there. This tree is probably 300 years old. Native Americans probably gathered acorns under this tree before they even knew that white people exist. And when electricity was the only electricity was the lightning that came out of the summer and fall. This tree is at least 30 feet away from the lines, and there's no way it will ever grow to be any closer. Again, it's just maintaining. It's not going to grow anymore. Not going to get any bigger. The so-called experts that were out here telling us about what they were going to be doing, the contractor that works for PG&E, they seem to have the idea that blue oaks continue to grow forever at about the same rate, which of course is. There's another tree that's marked. You can see the blue paint. If we go back out again, you can kind of see how close it is to these lines. A long ways off, at least 30 feet. There's no chance of any problem. Now this tree is probably, 50 feet. The branches that are closest to the wires are about 50 feet from them. and yet it's marked. Again, a mature blue oak, probably 300 years old, that's never going to grow big enough to cause a problem for PG&E's line. Now, we're suggesting that there's maybe two real reasons for this tree removal in our area here. One is that we've been opposing PG&E's plans to build a large transmission line and a substation in this area. It's the wrong place for it. We don't need to add new transmission and new substations and new large generating facilities. We need to go to small, localized generation, which is possible now. So, our opposition, we think, may be the reason that PG&E is trying to pay us back with this now. It's the way they do business. If you think about Prop 16, it's how they act. They try to take out the opposition rather than being reasonable and negotiating and adapting to the modern world. They want to keep things just the same. Here's another tree, another mature blue oak with a blue spot on it. You can see it's directly under the wires, but it's never been a problem before. And yet now, after 25 years of merely trimming the trees when they were getting close to the wires, now we're going to remove all of them. You know, one has to ask why. It doesn't make lots of sense. We've never had any outages on this line for this reason, and yet now they're changing. This tree wasn't marked, and yet it's as close to the lines as a lot of the other ones that were marked. Probably about 40-50 feet. So, you know, lots of times it just doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason to, you know, how these guys chose to mark the trees. You know, one of them measured a tree for us. He diligently put up his steel tape measure to the base of the tree, had his partner hold it while he back to where he thought the middle of the right-of-way was. You know, how he determined the middle of the right-of-way wasn't exactly clear. And he said 57.3. And of course, you know, they have a right to cut down any tree within 60 feet of the middle of the right-of-way. Well, I had to ask him. You know, I told him, I said, I trust your tape measure. I just don't really trust your judgment as to how to eyeball the center of that right-of-way. You know, and he simply didn't understand what I was talking about. This shows you the kind of mentality that's making these decisions.